didn't even see it coming. Not in the way you think a man would. There were no late-night lipstick marks on shirts. No strange perfumes clinging to her hair. No working late excuses. Emily was too smart for that, too smooth. She wore loyalty like a designer coat, and apparently, I was too blind to notice it was fake leather. The moment it started unraveling was as ordinary as any Saturday morning in our little home in Denver. Our 7-year-old son, Jake, was sitting cross-legged on the living room carpet, grinning at me like he had just cracked some top-secret code. His eyes sparkled in that way that makes you stop and wonder what mischief he's into. I was sipping my coffee, half listening to the news, when he said, "Dad, I have a surprise for you." I chuckled. "Yeah? What's that, champ?" He handed me a folded piece of paper from his tiny hands, looking like he'd just brought me buried treasure. When I unfolded it, I realized they weren't just papers, they were plane tickets. 2 of them. Round trip. First class. Cancun. Before I could even process, Jake said, in that innocent sing-song voice that kids have when they don't know they're detonating your life, "They're for Mum and Uncle Tony." I froze. "Uncle Tony?" My voice came out like someone else's. "Yeah." Jake beamed, proud. "Mum told me it's a special trip. She said not to tell you until after they came back. But I wanted to give you the surprise now." That's when my heartbeat slowed, then slammed hard into my ribs. My palms went cold. Tony, my best friend since high school. Tony who stood beside me at my wedding. Tony who held my son when he was a newborn. Tony who I trusted with my life. I looked at the tickets again. My eyes darted to the departure date. 3 days from now. She wasn't even planning to be out of town for work. Yet, she was going to smile at me over dinner tonight like nothing was happening. Jake tilted his head, confused by my silence. "Dad, are you mad at me?" I forced a smile, but my insides were molten. "No, buddy. You did good." Good? The kid had just dropped a truth bomb so big it blew a hole straight through my chest. And the worst part? He had no idea. I excused myself, telling Jake I had to check something. But the truth was, I stumbled into the bathroom, locked the door, and just stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger. Pale, tense, jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. Emily and Tony. Cancun. First class. The betrayal rolled over me in waves, and somewhere under the roaring in my ears, I realized something. I didn't just lose my wife in that moment. I lost my best friend too. And this was just the beginning that I kept my face straight for Jake. But inside I was a siren going off. After I tucked him in with cartoons and a bowl of cereal, I went hunting. I'm not proud of that word, but that's what it was, quiet, surgical hunting. If Emily could plan first-class sunshine with Tony, I could plan self-defense. First stop, her purse. Emily, my wife with the Ice Queen calm, never left it anywhere but the hallway console. Receipts, a lip balm, a second phone charger I didn't recognize, and a folded napkin from a place called Harbor and Vine with a phone number scrawled in Tony's blocky handwriting. Tony used to label his water bottle at the gym like he was tagging evidence. I knew those numbers. I took a photo. My hands didn't shake. Not yet. Next, the family iPad. Jake uses it for dinosaur games. Emily uses it for recipes, which is what she calls scrolling outfits on Instagram. I opened the calendar. There it was. A blocked entry 3 days from now at 6 a.m. labeled spa. Cute. Emily hates facials. She calls them overpriced steamed lies. I clicked through, looked for connected accounts, and found a synced email draft titled Trip Checklist. Delete after reading. Inside, sunscreen, passport, his favorite cap. His, not mine. I swallowed a laugh that wasn't a laugh at all. Then the sudden events started piling like hailstones. My phone buzzed. A text from Chris, our neighbor who lives 2 doors down and pretends he's invisible behind mirrored sunglasses. "Yo, Ryan, saw your car last night? Thought you were out. Somebody used your driveway." I typed back, "Who?" He sent a photo. Tony's black Tacoma parked crooked, tailgate kissing our garage door. Timestamp, 10:47 p.m. I had been at the graveyard shift fixing a server outage for our client in Phoenix. I stared at that image like it was a magic trick and tried to find the string. None. Just truth, dumb and heavy. Another ping. My sister, Megan. Random. But is Emily okay? She just Venmo'd Ashley $300 with a palm tree emoji. Ashley is Emily's buddy from the yoga place, the one who says everything like a secret. I replied, all good. Then I muted the thread because my chest was turning into a locked room with no air. I opened Find My and pretended I was checking battery levels. Emily's phone hovered 10 blocks away at a trendy bar called Clover, one of those places that serve drinks with smoke and rosemary sprigs like they're casting spells. I pulled on a hoodie, told Jake I'd be back in 20 and asked our neighbor Nicole to keep an ear out. She said, of course. In that voice people use when they know something's wrong but are too kind to ask. Clover was buzzing, string lights glowing like a lie you want to believe. I stood outside, my breath fogging a little in the night, and told myself I was only here to see. No scenes, no shouting, just data. I moved along the windows like I was shopping for a different life, found the corner banquette, and there they were. Emily, hair curled like she had a date with a camera. Tony, leaning in, elbows on the table like he was signing a contract. Their shoulders barely touched, but it was the kind of not touch that screamed they had already crossed the line 1,000 quiet times. Emily laughed, head thrown back, the laugh she retired at home years ago. Tony slid a small velvet pouch across to her. She opened it and pulled out a bracelet, silver, thin, cruelly elegant. She clasped it on with a smile she hasn't used on me since Jake learned to walk. Another sudden jolt. A waiter knocked a glass over at the next table. It shattered, everyone flinched, and Emily's hand shot to Tony's forearm, instinct fast, familiar. My stomach dropped like an elevator. I didn't walk in. I filmed 10 seconds through the glass, my face a ghost in the reflection, then stepped back, because I knew if I went farther, words would turn into shrapnel. On the sidewalk, a college kid bumped me and said, "My bad, dude." And I realized my fists were clenched so hard my nails left moons in my palms. Back home, the house felt staged. The framed wedding photo, me in a navy suit, Emily in lace, Tony grinning in the second row like he owned the day, looked like it had been left out by a lazy set decorator. I set the phone on the counter and let the 10 seconds play on loop. Proof delivered by a trembling hand. Not courtroom proof, maybe, but enough to rewrite the past. I started noticing everything. The way Emily's perfume had gone from warm vanilla to sharp citrus in the last month. The new habit of turning her phone face down. To be more present. The sudden gym sessions with Kyle, the trainer who says core like a religion. The missing green suitcase. The way she had stopped saying we and started saying I. Like marriage was a loan she was done paying off. Then another event, clean and brutal. An email notification popped on the iPad. An itinerary change from Sunwings Air. Passenger names. Emily Carter and Anthony Ruiz. I clicked. Seats 2A and 2B. I tasted metal. For the first time that day, my hands shook. Jake padded out in dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Dad? You okay?" I knelt, hugged him too tight. "Yeah, buddy. Just thinking, cataloging, building a map of betrayal with pins and strings. And under it all, a drumbeat starting in my bones. This isn't just happening to you. It's happening around you, and tomorrow it's going to ask you what kind of man you are." I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and wrote 3 names on a sticky note. Emily, Tony, lawyer. Then I added one more, Ryan, because I didn't recognize myself anymore, and tomorrow I'd need to. The morning after my quiet stakeout at Clover, I woke up with the kind of energy that isn't really energy at all. It's just anger wearing running shoes. I didn't bother pretending anymore. Emily was in the kitchen, humming, pouring coffee like she didn't have plane tickets to a sunny betrayal stuffed somewhere in her bag. "Morning," she said, without looking at me. I sat down at the table, phone in hand, proof queued up. "Emily, we need to talk." She glanced over her shoulder, one brow raised like she was amused. "Sounds serious. Did Jake break something?" "No," I said, my voice flatter than I intended. You did. That made her pause. Just for a second, her hands stilled over the coffee pot. But she recovered fast. Emily always was the kind of person who could run in heels without stumbling. "Oh, here we go," she said, rolling her eyes. I tapped the screen, letting the 10-second video play. She didn't even blink when her own laughter spilled out of the phone's speaker, the bracelet gleaming under the bar lights. She watched it like it was a bad trailer for a movie she wouldn't watch. "You've been following me?" she asked, her tone more offended than guilty. "Don't turn this into that," I said. "This is you. With Tony. You planned a trip. First class. Cancun." Emily smirked. "Wow, congratulations, Sherlock. You found my big secret." "That's what you're calling it?" My voice was rising now. "A secret? That's my best friend, Emily. That's our marriage, you're—" "Oh, stop with the melodrama," she cut in, setting the coffee pot down a little too hard. "Tony's been there for me in ways you haven't. He listens. He actually cares." The words landed like a punch. She said them casually, like she was discussing grocery prices. "You're seriously going to stand there and justify this?" I asked. She crossed her arms, leaning on the counter. "Why not? It's not like you've been some perfect husband. You're always working, always tired. I told you months ago I felt invisible. Feeling invisible doesn't mean you run off with my best friend," I snapped. She laughed then, a sharp, dismissive sound. "God, you really do think everything's about loyalty, don't you? Like this is some high school football team and you're the captain." Newsflash, Ryan, life moves on. My hands were gripping the table edge so hard the wood creaked. "You plan to just leave? Take a vacation, come back, and what? Pretend nothing happened?" Her expression shifted, just slightly. A tiny flicker of irritation, like she hated that I'd guessed part of her plan. "It wasn't about you," she said finally. "It was about me being happy. That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard you say." She shrugged. "Call it selfish, call it survival. Same thing." Jake padded into the room then, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, why are you yelling?" I took a deep breath. "Go get dressed, buddy. I'll take you to school in a minute." Emily didn't even look guilty that our son was now part of the atmosphere of this explosion. She just poured her coffee, stirred it slowly, and said, "This is happening whether you like it or not." I stood. "Not if I end it first." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, so now you're threatening me?" "No," I said, grabbing my keys. "I'm promising you." She followed me to the door, her voice dripping venom. "You think you're going to win here, Ryan? You're not. Tony cares more about me than you ever have. And when we're sipping margaritas in Cancun, I'll toast to your stubbornness." I turned back, meeting her stare. "When you're in Cancun, Emily, remember something. The moment that plane takes off, you lose more than me. You lose Jake's respect. You lose the friends who won't take sides but will still know exactly who you are. And when Tony gets tired of being your hero, you'll be standing there alone with a drink in your hand, wondering when you became the villain in your own story." Her jaw tightened. "Get out." I walked to the car without another word, Jake trailing behind me with his backpack. As I buckled him in, he whispered, "Are you mad at Mom?" I swallowed hard. "I'm just sad, buddy." The drive to school was quiet except for the sound of Jake unwrapping a granola bar. My phone buzzed twice, once from Megan, once from an unknown number. I didn't check either. Not yet, because now the confrontation wasn't just about catching Emily. It was about deciding how much of myself I was willing to lose in the process of getting free. And I had a feeling the next few days were going to demand everything I had left. I dropped Jake at school and watched him run toward the building, little legs pumping under that oversized hoodie. He didn't look back. For 7 years, I thought that was a good sign. A sign he felt safe. Today, it just felt like a goodbye I didn't understand. The second I was alone in the car, the weight of it all hit me like I'd been holding my breath for hours and finally exhaled. My hands were still on the steering wheel, but they weren't gripping it, they were just hanging there. I stared at them like they belonged to someone else. I'd been cheated on before. High school. A girl named Melissa. She'd kissed a guy behind the bleachers. Hurt me for a week, maybe two. But this was different. This was my wife, my best friend, the mother of my kid. And it wasn't a mistake, it was a plan. The truth didn't just hurt. It rewired everything. Every memory was now a crime scene. That barbecue 3 months ago when Tony helped me fix the grill? He probably left early because Emily was waiting. The time she came home late from shopping and smelled like rain? Maybe it was tequila and him. My chest was tight, and I pulled over in a Walgreens parking lot because I thought for a second I might throw up. I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the red glow of the store's sign. And then my phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Text from Megan. Ryan, call me. You're not going to like this. I called immediately. She answered on the first ring. He's been at her place before, she said without hello. What? I didn't want to tell you because I wasn't sure. But last week, I drove past your house at night. Tony's truck was in the driveway. I thought maybe you were hanging out, but I guess not. I closed my eyes. It wasn't me. There was silence on her end, then a sharp inhale. Ryan, I know, I said. Thanks. And I hung up before my voice could crack. It was like betrayal came in waves. You'd think once you find out, the pain peaks. But no, it keeps spiking, each new detail another knife between the ribs. By the time I got home, Emily was gone. Her coffee mug was still in the sink, lipstick print on the rim. I stood there staring at it, stupidly, like maybe it could tell me why she did this. I poured it out and threw the mug in the trash. Not slammed, just dropped it. Quiet. The house felt like a stranger's. Every photo on the wall now looked staged. Every blanket on the couch felt like it had covered lies. I sat in the armchair and tried to remember the last time we were genuinely happy. Couldn't. I opened a beer, even though it was barely noon, and let my thoughts spiral. Shock turned into anger. Anger turned into this sharp, stinging sadness. The kind that sits behind your eyes and makes you feel heavy all over. I thought about Jake, about what this would do to him. Emily, in her selfish little bubble, wasn't thinking about that. She was thinking about tan lines and resort cocktails with my best friend. Then sudden, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Ryan. It was Tony. My grip tightened. Yeah. Look, man. Don't look, man, me. I cut him off. He sighed. I didn't want it to happen like this. You didn't want what to happen? Sleeping with my wife? Planning a vacation with her? It's not like that, he said quickly. I laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. Tony, I have plane tickets. I have video. Do you want me to send them so you can remember? Silence. Then, she's not happy, Ryan. And you decided you were the solution? I care about her. Right? I said. Enough to destroy our friendship. Enough to break Jake's family apart. Real noble. He started to say something else. But I hung up. My hands were shaking again. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And in war, you don't just defend yourself. You take ground. I grabbed a notebook and started making lists. Bank accounts, shared bills, legal contacts, custody considerations. My sadness was still there, but something colder was taking root under it. By the time Emily came home that evening, I was ready to play the long game. She walked in like nothing was wrong, setting down shopping bags, smiling faintly. Hey! I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't see my wife. I saw the woman who was going to regret underestimating me. Emily tossed her shopping bags on the couch, kicked off her heels, and flopped down like she owned the place. Which technically she did half of it. For now, I stayed in my chair, notebook in my lap, pen still in hand. She noticed, smirked. What's with the homework? Just making plans, I said. For what? Oh wait. Are you plotting my public execution? She laughed at her own joke. No, I said. Something more efficient. Her smirk twitched, but she covered it by reaching for her phone. You're really going to be dramatic about this, huh? You could just let me go, you know. Make it easy. I leaned forward. Let you go? Emily, you're not a balloon. You're my wife. You stood in front of our families and promised me forever. And now you're sneaking around with Tony, my best friend, and telling me I should just let you go." She rolled her eyes. "You're obsessed with titles. Wife. Best friend. Maybe stop labeling everything and just accept that people change." My jaw clenched. "You mean they betray?" She shrugged. "Same difference." It was in that moment I decided there was no saving this. Not her, not us, and certainly not Tony. What was left was making sure Jake came out of this with as little damage as possible, and making sure I wasn't left standing in the ashes empty-handed. So I told her, "I'm calling a lawyer." She laughed again, but there was a flicker in her eyes this time, like maybe she'd been expecting me to mope, beg, or rage, but not move. "Oh, here we go. Dragging the law into it." "Yes," I said, "because clearly you've made all your decisions without me. Now it's my turn." Her voice sharpened. "You're not taking Jake from me." "I'm not taking him," I said evenly. "I'm protecting him." Big difference. Protecting him from me? You're insane. I let her stew in that while I stood, walked past her, and started pulling important documents from the filing cabinet: birth certificates, passports, bank statements. Her voice followed me like static. "You really think you can paint me as the villain?" she called out. I turned back. "I don't have to paint anything. You've been busy writing your own story, Emily. I'm just letting people read it." That one landed. She fell silent, just for a second. Then she grabbed her phone and started texting furiously. Probably Tony, maybe Ashley from yoga, maybe her mom, who would definitely take her side no matter what. Sudden event number 1. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time I answered on speaker. "Mr. Carter?" A female voice, calm, professional. "This is Denise from Stevens and Company. Your sister Megan asked me to call you. She said you might be needing legal counsel regarding family matters." Emily's head snapped up. I held her gaze while I said, "Yes, I need to schedule a meeting today." We set a time, 3 p.m. Emily didn't say a word, but her jaw worked like she was chewing on something bitter. Sudden event number 2. Jake came bursting through the front door an hour later. Nicole from next door had brought him home early because school had an electrical outage. He was clutching a piece of paper. "Dad, look what I drew." I knelt, took it from him. It was a crayon drawing me, him, and Emily standing under a sun. But between me and Emily, there was a tall figure with messy hair. Tony. He'd even written the name above it. I looked at Emily. She looked away. That was when I knew this wasn't just about ending a marriage. This was about reclaiming my role in Jake's life before Emily and Tony rewrote it without me. The rest of the afternoon was a quiet war zone. I packed a small overnight bag for Jake, just in case, and sent a text to Megan. "Meeting lawyer today. Need you on standby." She replied instantly, "Always." At 3 p.m., I sat in Denise's office, explaining everything. I gave her the dates, the video, the tickets, even the crayon drawing. She didn't flinch. "You're in a strong position," she said, "especially if we can prove exposure to an affair in the presence of your son." Back home, Emily was on the phone, pacing the kitchen. She didn't even hang up when I walked in. Just gave me that sideways glare that said she knew things were shifting, and she hated it. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to, because for the first time since Jake handed me those plane tickets, I felt something like control. And I wasn't about to give it back. 2 days before the Cancun trip. The air in the house was so thick you could cut it with a steak knife. Emily had stopped pretending. No more forced small talk, no more fake smiles at dinner. She moved around like I was a stranger who'd overstayed his welcome in her Airbnb. That morning, I caught her in the hallway, dragging the green suitcase out from under the bed, the same one I'd noticed missing in my mental list. I leaned against the doorway. "Packing early?" She didn't even look up. "Just getting things organized." "For the spa?" I asked, letting the word drip with sarcasm. That earned me a smirk. "You're not funny." I stepped closer. "Neither is abandoning your kid for a week while you sip cocktails with my best friend." She zipped the suitcase with a hard jerk. "You'll survive. Jake will survive. And honestly, Maybe you'll realize how much better I am at making myself happy than you are. That one almost got me to snap. But I didn't. Not yet. Sudden event number 1 hit an hour later. My phone buzzed Megan again. You need to see this. She sent a screenshot. Tony's Instagram story. A selfie in his truck. Captioned, 2 days till Paradise Palm Tree Airplane. He wasn't subtle anymore. I showed Emily. She barely glanced at it before shrugging. So you don't even care if people know? Why should I? You're acting like this is the crime of the century. Guess what, Ryan? People leave. It happens every day. You're not leaving, Emily. You're detonating. She rolled her eyes, wheeled her suitcase into the guest room, and shut the door in my face. By noon, sudden event number 2 arrived. Literally. Tony, pulling up in his truck, music blaring. He strolled up the walkway like he owned the place, wearing sunglasses and that stupid cocky grin. I opened the door before he could knock. Turn around and get back in your truck. He smirked. Relax, man. I'm just here to help her get ready. You're not stepping foot in my house. Emily appeared behind me, suitcase in hand. It's fine, Ryan. Let him in. I turned to her. You've got some nerve. Oh, spare me, she snapped. Tony, grab the bag from the car, will you? Tony stepped around me like I wasn't even there. My blood boiled, but I held it in, because Denise's words from the lawyer meeting were still fresh in my mind. Don't give them ammunition. While they loaded the truck, I slipped into the kitchen, pulled out my phone, and called Denise. Change of plans, I said. I want the custody paperwork ready before she gets back. And I want to file for divorce while she's still on that beach. Denise didn't hesitate. We can do that. Sudden event number 3. Jake walked in from Nicole's, holding a small stuffed dinosaur. He looked from me to the open front door where Tony stood loading the suitcase. Why is Uncle Tony here? I crouched down. He's helping your mom with something. Jake frowned. He's going on the trip with her, right? Yeah, I said quietly. Then I don't like him anymore. He said it so simply, like a fact. And for the first time in days, I felt a grim kind of satisfaction. Tony and Emily finally left, slamming the door behind them. I stood there in the silence, the faint smell of her perfume still lingering in the air, and realized I'd just crossed the point of no return. This wasn't my wife anymore. This was someone else entirely, a stranger with my son's last name. I spent the rest of the day putting my plan into motion, changed the passwords on our shared accounts, pulled half the money from the joint checking into a separate account Denise had advised me to set up, made copies of every important document, booked an appointment with a custody evaluator. That night, when Jake was asleep, I walked through the house with my phone camera rolling, documenting everything. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every little thing we owned together. Evidence for later. By the time I collapsed into bed, the anger had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to dismantle her escape fantasy piece by piece until she realized what she'd really lost. And when she came back from Cancun, smiling and sunburned, she was going to walk straight into the wreckage she'd built for herself. Emily left the next morning, bright and early, suitcase in hand and Tony waiting in the driveway. She didn't even kiss Jake goodbye, just tossed him a half-hearted, "See you soon, champ," before sliding into the passenger seat like she was being chauffeured to royalty. I watched them pull away, then locked the door. And for the first time since this whole mess began, the silence in the house felt like mine. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and pulled out my list. First move, call Denise. We finalized the custody paperwork and filed the divorce petition that afternoon. The best part? By the time Emily was sipping her first overpriced cocktail in Cancun, she was already served electronically. She wouldn't see it coming until her email pinged with a notification. Second move, secure Jake's routines. I talked to his school, explained there might be changes at home soon, and made sure I was listed as the primary contact for emergencies. The principal nodded, gave me the kind of sympathetic look people reserve for widows and war veterans, and said, "We'll keep an eye out for him." Third move, change the locks. Legally, she still had a right to get in, but Denise advised that temporary measures for Jake's safety would hold up until the court date. The locksmith came by that evening, quick and discreet. By day 2 of her trip, I had the house running like a well-oiled machine. Jake and I cooked dinner together, spaghetti his favorite, and watched a movie before bed. The contrast was sharp. No tension, no fake small talk, just quiet. Then came sudden event number 1, Megan again. She called late, her voice low. "Ryan, you need to see this." She sent a screenshot of Tony's latest post. A beach selfie, him shirtless with sunglasses, Emily in the background lying on a lounge chair. But here's the kicker, Emily wasn't alone. Another man was leaning over her, handing her a drink. And she was laughing in that same way she laughed with Tony at Clover, head back, carefree. Megan added, "That's not Tony. Who the hell is that?" I zoomed in. Definitely not Tony. Taller, darker, a stranger in bright swim trunks. My first thought was disbelief. Was she seriously cheating on Tony while cheating on me? My second thought was colder. Of course she was. Sudden event number 2 landed that night. A message from Tony, short, bitter. "You win. She's your problem again." No explanation, no follow-up. Just that. I didn't reply. By day 3, I had more news. Denise called to say Emily had opened the divorce email but hadn't responded. "That's fine," she said. "Silence works in our favor. We'll move forward." That afternoon, I took Jake to the park. While he played, Nicole came over and sat next to me on the bench. "She's been spotted," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "My cousin works at a resort in Cancun. Saw her last night at the bar. Definitely not with Tony." I almost laughed. "Guess she's networking." Nicole gave me a sharp look. "Ryan, you know this is going to get uglier before it's over, right?" I nodded. "That's why I'm getting ahead of it." When we got home, Jake asked if Mom was coming back soon. I told him yes, but I didn't add that she'd be walking back into a different world. By the 4th day, my plan was in full swing. Denise had filed a motion for temporary full custody, citing unstable parental behavior and exposure to inappropriate relationships. We also documented her absence during a school week without notice, which the judge would not appreciate. That evening, sudden event number 3 hit. An email from Emily. No greeting, no small talk. Just, "You're overreacting. I'll be back in a few days. Stop making this harder than it needs to be." I typed back, "We'll discuss it in court." Then I closed my laptop. It was strange, 3 weeks ago that kind of message would have ripped me apart. Now it barely registered. She was already gone. The only difference was, this time I was the one deciding what came next. By the time her flight landed 2 days later, I had the custody hearing date, the financial separation in motion, and enough documentation to choke a judge's inbox. She walked through the door sunburned, in a cheap straw hat, and saw the changed locks first. The shock on her face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent. "You changed the locks?" she snapped. I smiled. "Temporary measure. We'll talk about it in court." Her glare could have set the couch on fire. "You think you've won?" "No," I said. "I think I've started." The custody hearing was set for 2 weeks after Emily's return, and those 14 days felt like a slow burn leading to a fuse. She didn't try to talk about the trip, didn't apologize, didn't even attempt a fake reconciliation. Instead, she moved through the house like a tenant waiting for eviction, short-tempered and careless, slamming cabinet doors, muttering under her breath. The day of court, I wore my best navy suit, the same one I'd worn at our wedding, though it felt like wearing armor now. Denise was calm and methodical, flipping through her notes like she already knew the ending. Emily showed up late, dressed sharp, but with that restless energy that screams I've been cornered. Tony wasn't there. Later, I'd hear from Megan that they'd stopped speaking before she even got on the return flight from Cancun. The judge listened as Denise laid it all out. The trip booked under false pretenses, the absence during a school week, the public images from social media, the presence of multiple unrelated men during her vacation. Then she presented the kicker, Jake's drawing, where Tony stood between his parents. Emily's lawyer tried to spin it. "Your Honor, This is simply a case of a marriage ending and two adults seeking happiness separately. There's no evidence that Ms. Carter has endangered her child. But Denise was ready. Endangerment doesn't always mean physical harm. Emotional instability, exposure to multiple romantic partners, prioritizing personal gratification over parental responsibility, these are all relevant factors in determining custody. Emily rolled her eyes, which didn't help her case. The judge's ruling wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost clinical. I was granted temporary primary custody, with Emily receiving visitation on weekends. Financial accounts were to be split pending the final divorce settlement, but the house stayed with me and Jake until a permanent arrangement could be made. Emily's jaw tightened like she was chewing glass. When we walked out into the hallway, she spun toward me. "You think you've humiliated me? This isn't over, Ryan." I looked at her and felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just a strange kind of relief. "It was over the second you booked those tickets," I said. "This is just the paperwork." For the next week, she tried small tactics, dropping by unannounced, calling late at night, sending texts about working this out for Jake's sake. I kept it short every time. "Talk to your lawyer." Sudden event number 1 came from Tony, of all people. He called late one evening, his voice hoarse. "You were right about her. She's poison." I didn't say "I told you so." I just hung up. Sudden event number 2 came from Jake. We were sitting on the porch, eating ice cream, when he said, "Dad, I like it better when it's just us." I asked why. He shrugged. "It's quiet. You listen more." That one hit deep, not just because of what he said, but because I realized he wasn't just surviving this. He was adapting. By the time the final divorce papers came through 3 months later, Emily had moved into a small apartment across town. Her social media was full of forced smiles with new faces, most of them fading in and out within weeks. I didn't follow. Megan kept me updated when necessary, but otherwise, Emily had become someone I knew only through legal documents and the occasional awkward handoff of our son. Looking back, the betrayal itself wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing how long I'd been living with someone who'd already left me in every way that mattered. The best part? Realizing that survival isn't just about standing up after the hit. It's about building something better while the dust is still settling. So here's what I'd tell anyone who finds themselves where I was. Don't beg for answers from someone who's already lied to you without blinking. Don't waste energy trying to make them see what they've done. They've already justified it in their own mind. Document everything. Protect yourself legally before you react emotionally. Lean on the people who actually show up for you. And if you have kids, remember, they're watching, learning, absorbing. Your strength will become theirs. As for me, I'm not the same man who sat in that living room holding 2 plane tickets and wondering what went wrong. That man was still hoping for the truth. This man knows it and knows he can live with it. And when I think about Emily now, it's not anger that comes to mind. It's a simple truth. Sometimes losing someone is the clearest win you'll ever get. Jake came outside that evening, holding his dinosaur toy, and sat next to me on the porch steps. "Dad," he said, "do you think we can go on a trip one day? Just us?" I smiled. "Yeah, buddy. Anywhere you want." And for the first time since this all began, I meant it without a single shadow behind the words.